So, it's been nearly a year since Wuthering was released, and I've been playing the game for over a year. Funny how that works. Thank you, beta test. This also means that my channel is older than the game's launch, which not a high bar to clear. 1 year is not a long time. Speaking of this channel's origin, I wasn't even planning on making content for the game, or any content for that matter. This all began because of one enemy during the beta, or rather the music for one boss, the Impermanence Heron. During the beta, some of the music was a bit different than what we have now. One example being the title screen music, which I swear sounds like one of Warframe's old login BGMs, like around the time when Tigris Prime was the best weapon and everybody was farming Necros and his blueprints. Anyway, the title screen music is now the music used for Dreamless. The other change was the music for the Dumb Tribird, which had a heavier emphasis on EDM than it does now. The thing is, at the time, there weren't any videos that had to play for more than 5 minutes. And yes, I know that YouTube had a feature where you can right-click on a video to bring up a little drop-down menu, and then press the loop button to loop the track. But A, that doesn't work on mobile, and B, having a music track abruptly cut off and then just restart is not something I enjoy. I prefer a seamless transition between the loops. Ergo, my solution of uploading a 15-minute version came to my head. However, as I do not know how to edit MP3 files, all I did was just run around the boss fight while my Baiji just worked overtime to keep everyone alive. Which I'm assuming is why she didn't give me the tutorial gacha on the official release, because she just skipped it. I never had my tutorial gacha thing that gave me the free Baiji. That being said, she does deserve a break, so she can rest on my actual game. As I continued to play the beta and just enjoy the game, I figured that I'd try and see if I could solo flawless every single overworld boss before the beta ended, because why not? Now, I'm not as skilled as Blanc or Wallenstein's, Rexlent, Let Me Solo Her, Ongbal, or any other challenge run content creator. However, I've been playing Soulsborne games ever since Dark Souls 1 and went to at least New Game Plus 7 on multiple characters while level capping myself to the PvP meta. So, I'm fairly confident in my third-person action RPG skills. And if I was going to start doing some solo flawless runs, might as well record and upload it just for the hell of it. And so my journey began, starting with Crownless because he was the most fun to fight, then the Ghost Rider, then Morning Axe. Yeah, I got stonewalled hard by this asshole. And then the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV released a new patch during that time, and as an avid Final Fantasy XIV player, my time was split between Final Fantasy XIV and this was just all an excuse of me getting skill issued. At least I was able to beat that stupid level 120 bear before the beta ended. Despite being a beta tester and a day one player, I was actually pretty on and off with Wuthering Waves. I mean, yeah, I played frequently during 1.0 to 1.1 and getting all 4 limited characters that were released, but that was kinda expected. The game was still new and we were all in the honeymoon phase. Late 1.1 and early 1.2 was kinda when I stopped playing the game, which is why I don't have Zhangli Yao. There were a couple of reasons why I stopped playing. One such reason being Elden Ring's DLC being released and the mods for that game also being updated, and the other reason was because I accidentally messed up my PC by using my old power cables for my new power supply, which is something you do not do. And soon enough, patch 1.3 came around and I met a woman who waited for who knows how long for me to return. It was fitting, given that the rover was away for an unknown amount of time, and I had taken a break for just over a month at that point. The story was nice, despite the game failing at the show don't tell part of Shorekeeper and Rova's history, but if her waiting isn't a sign of loyalty, I don't know what is. From there, I explored the Black Shores for a little bit. I found an enemy that somehow got here from PGR, and then I finally decided to focus on the hologram bosses, the ones I had not touched since my characters were capped at level 70. Now that my two main characters were level 90, them being Sanhua and Shangli, I went to go tackle them all again. And then I got skill issued hard by Kronless. I guess he didn't like all the time I spent using him as a punching bag during the beta. Still, I kicked his ass in an almost flawless run, and that was like 3 hours before the 2.0 update. Once 2.0 dropped, I took a boat from Sampo Alto, encountered a narwhal, which, by the way, if I had a nickel every time Kuro put a unicorn whale that had some mind control shenanigans involved into the story, I would have 2 nickels. I played a bit more, got to meet the love child of Tosakarin and Archer. Honestly, she even had the same Japanese voice actress, though I am quite partial to her English VA, Shadowheart and all. Then I met Zani, who just ticked all my boxes, and I knew immediately that I would wail for her, which I did to a degree. She even had the Charge Blade, which is my main weapon of choice in Monster Hunter. On the topic of characters, let's talk about them and the teams that I primarily use. Team 1 is my flex. It's the one I use for most general content, like farming materials, doing some things in the overworld, or even the solo boss runs. Team 2 is Zani, Phoebe, and Shorekeeper, the Spectral Frazzle team. Team 3 is going to be Carlotta, Tauchi, and Shorekeeper. Team 4 is Jian, Hortefi, and Shorekeeper. Team 5 is Cantarella, Sanhua, and Camellia, and is my Havoc / basic attack team. So, those are my team comps. Now let's talk about the individual characters. Not all, but just a few that I like the most in no particular order. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'm going to begin with Sanhua because she's my favorite, and she's the one whose design caught my eye when the game was still in the pre-release, pre-alpha stages. So Sanhua is she has that calm, mature vibe with the cool, reserved nature, who really only shows emotions to those that are close to her. And she does not know how to smile, and is trying her best to learn how to smile. Quite frankly, I find that to be absolutely adorable. I mean, she does smile eventually in the 1.2 quest. I just wish she had her back tattoo from the beta. Shangli, she's got that calm, mature vibe, she's got red hair, a phoenix motif, and she is voiced by Tamamo no Mae from Fate. That's only positives. And her companion quest, man, just the way she looks at you and smiles at you at the end of her companion quest, it's just perfect. Also, the young form of her, the child form of her during her quest, is adorable, and I would like to adopt her. Cantarella, she's got that calm, mature vibe, a purple color scheme which just so happens to be my favorite color, and before anyone asks, yes, I accepted her tea. Given my history with Final Fantasy XIV and things that happened with offered drinks in the MSQ, I really should know better. But I figured that if the Visalia family really wanted Rover out of the picture, they would not be so blatant as to openly invite them into their state just to poison them. It turns out that me trusting Cantarella and accepting her tea was rewarded, since she genuinely had good intentions from the start. You can tell by her face expressions when you accept or refuse a tea. When you refuse, there's a bit of hurt and her smile drops ever so slightly before she puts on that fake smile again just to continue the conversation. However, if you accept the tea, You find out that she gave you one of the best teeth that was most definitely imported from Jinso, and she has a rare but genuine smile on her face right after. Not only that, she is, without a doubt, one of the most selfless and caring characters in the game. There's a comment on Marco Meatball's 2.2 livestream pod that just put it perfectly. GN, look at this handsome man. He was the most fun for me to play during the beta. Something about the mix of his sword, the spear, and his little green dragon just oozed style. Even if my impression of him at the start was just Xiao from Genshin but cooler. He was also the first character I made a video with, which, looking back at it now, my gameplay is so rough because I was still getting used to the combat back then. I don't know, maybe I'll go back and just make that video again but with the holocronless. Sunny, the character that basically broke Twitter when she was initially announced. Oh my god, she became trending almost immediately. She's got that calm, mature vibe. Look, I have a type, okay? White hair, horns, a fantastic Ian voice. She likes getting sleep and getting paid. I can relate. Also, as I said before, she has a freaking charge blade. Arguably, one of the best weapons in the franchise, second only to Hunting Horn, and your opinion may differ, that's fine, just know that your opinion is wrong. Also, women in suits, that is all. Tisha, I don't really use much anymore, but she was a staple of my team in the early game. She's got a great personality, a fantastic midriff, and she shoots bullets with her finger guns. Also, her whole skill is called Daka Daka. You can never go wrong with more Daka. The green boys will know. Also, she looks a little bit like Reno's daughter, if he ever had a child. Or, just Yoimiya, but gun. Why Wuthering Waves? Well, like I said before, I have a long history with the Souls genre, beginning with Dark Souls 1 back in 2011. Why Dark Souls and not Demon Souls? Because the only console I had was Xbox, because Halo. Anyway, 2011 me had just finished class and had gone to my friend's house for our usual Halo LAN party. However, during that visit, instead of booting up the Xbox and pressing play on Halo Reach, he popped in a different game disc. And yes, that game was Dark Souls. He then handed me the controller, and after I made my character, he told me 2 words: good luck. And I definitely needed that because I died a lot. But I was hooked on the game, and soon enough I got my own copy. From then, with every new Souls title that was released, I would just play that game relentlessly. I maxed out the playtime on my first save file in Dark Souls 1, went to New Game Plus 7 on every game except for Bloodborne because I didn't, and still don't, own a PlayStation, and played through overhaul mods like Cinders, Reforged, and Convergence. Sometime before the release of Elden Ring, and during the time of Sekiro, which still has the best combat out of any game I've played, like there is no stamina, and you can be hyper aggressive with bosses and not worry about your health or your posture so long as you perfect parry. Anyway, as I was saying, during that time, a certain open world gacha game released called Genshin Impact. Oh no, a Wuthering Waves video talking about a Hoyu game. The Heresy.
The Codex Astartes does not support this act.
Shut up, Leandros. So I downloaded Genshin on the 1st of October, played through the intro, I saw Jean, I liked her design, and I pulled on the gacha in hopes that I would get her. And the first 5-star I got was not Jean, but instead was some random twink. Not caring about a twink, which I still do not because he is only level 60, I went back to Final Fantasy XIV, which at the time I was completely engrossed with. And for about a year, Genshin wasn't even a thought in my mind. At least, not until images of a certain character began just going around the internet. And just like the aforementioned characters, I have a type. She had a cool mature vibe, a purple color scheme, controls lightning, which nearly every character that controls lightning is just cool, had a great voice, which was one that I recognized immediately because she is voiced by Sawashiro Miyuki, who is by far my favorite voice actress of all time. So, I re-downloaded Genshin on the last hour of Yoimiya's banner. I rolled for the Happy Fireworks girl, got her, and once Raiden's banner was released, I got her to C2 R3 on that same day. Yes, R3. I was new, okay? From then, I pretty much played Genshin every day as it quickly became my main game. Sure, I would play other games from time to time, but at the end of the day, I would go back to Genshin. Even though I was playing and I was enjoying the game, there was something about it that just didn't click. But I ignored it because there was so much more that I enjoyed about the game than that one little nagging feeling. 2 years later, and I played so often that I was experiencing some heavy burnout. So I stopped, and it was around that time when the nagging feeling from before finally clicked. I was treating Genshin Impact like an actual Soulsborne game. I came into it expecting the challenge and the replayability that the Soul series had, but Genshin just doesn't have it. It's not meant to have it. The only challenge the game had was the Abyss, and the only reason why that was challenging was because I was limited by a timer. But since I had Raiden at C2 and eventually C4 during her rerun, she trivialized most of the content. Her and my Yoimiya Yelan team just cleared the Abyss easily, getting 36 stars until I stopped caring about the rewards, and that was early 2024. And Arlecchino released, and with all the similarities that she has to Zani, I got her, went to the Abyss again, and I figured that going for 36 stars was no longer worth the time and stress. It was never worth that. And then after May of 2024, I just stopped. I tried the Abyss again this past March and quickly discovered that if I want a full clear of the Abyss pretty easily, I would need to get multiple characters from Natlan. Unfortunately for me, I only had 2 characters from that region, one being the free Kachina that everybody got, and the second being a level 60 Shilonen. Even so, I managed to get 33 stars, and once again, it's only 50 primos. So I went back to Dark Souls, and Elden Ring, and the mod scene. I re-downloaded Cinders, Reforged, and Convergence, all 3 that were completely updated to include more content. And I was having fun and enjoying what was essentially a new game for me. But that entire time, I kept thinking that if Genshin had Punishing Grey Raven's combat, it would be a perfect game for me, or close to a perfect game. And finally, kurogames teased Wuthering Waves, and the only info that the community knew was that it would be a open world game. And at that point, I was already playing PGR and for quite a long time, and I was excited. A Genshin-like open world game, but with the combat of PGR. What was there not to be excited about? Then the game released, and the rest is history. Which brings us to today. Now, is Wuthering Waves a perfect game? No, no game is. And no game should be perfect. Every game should strive for perfection, since that's the only way the game will improve. But even so, Wuthering Waves is a really good game. and it's basically what I wanted if PGR and Genshin had a child, and I will not take that for granted. The combat is smooth and the power creep is minimal since there are so many damage attributes like the elements, basic attack, heavy attack, skill damage, liberation damage, and so on. Endgame is actually a thing with the hologram boss fights, Whimpering Waves, and the tower, and I've been having a lot of fun doing these solo character boss fights, especially with Zani and her combat loop. Genshin has the perfect parry that Zani also has. Hell, she even gets 2 with her second resonance chain, which I don't have. But the thing with Genshin is that she's a jack of all trades, master of none. And yes, I know that the second half of that quote is better than a master of one. However, in a video game, you don't want a jack of all trades. You want a master of one. And Genshin with her healing, shielding, and her lackluster DPS is certainly not a master of one. Zani is basically Genshin if she focused solely on doing damage, and is pretty much everything I wanted in a character. She's got a fantastic design, a fun combat loop even outside of her liberation. She's got a perfect parry that has a very low cooldown, which basically has 3 charges if you time it right, has a near infinite amount of parries during her liberation, and has a clock motif that appears during her liberation that reminds me of Unlimited Blade Works. So about this channel, I really only began focusing on the channel and making videos this past April, which as of now is only 1 month ago, nearly 2 months at this point. Granted, 3 of those 6 videos in April were about Monster Hunter, but everything since has been about Wuthering Waves. Will I continue making videos about Wuthering Waves? Of course. Will they be focused on challenge runs and or cinematic boss fights? Yes, there are a lot of bosses and a lot of characters. Will I make videos on other things? Well, that depends on what that content is. One thing that I do not ever want to touch is anything related to drama, as I would like to keep this channel focused primarily on the game, specifically things that I enjoy about the game. That being said, if there is anything in particular that you guys would like to see, even if it is mundane things like, I don't know, me talking about the previous gacha games that I've played, feel free to let me know and I will see what I can do. And now that I've gotten to the end of this video, I realize that I have no idea how to do a proper outro since I've never had to do one. So
I can see the dawn on what is fading.